Jake Brukhman, the founder of CoinFund, is going to be the next up. I think CoinFund signal is super strong, and maybe on the intersection of crypto and AI, it's probably the strongest out there. And there was just one thought that just sticks with me all the time that I want to bring to you before I hand over to Jake. Investing in AI. If you really believe that AI is going to be big, as most people do, and AI agents will proliferate, I truly believe the best way to invest in AI is actually to invest in blockchain infrastructure, right? Because it's probably not a stretch. Curious to your take, Jake, but then in 10 years, 99.9% of the traffic on this infrastructure is coming from AI agents, right? So think about that, and with that, handing it over to Jake.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, awesome. I'm Jake Brukhman. I'm the founder and CEO of CoinFund, and today I'd like to present our basic thesis on decentralized AI. Before I do that, just to get the disclaimers out of the way, this is for informational purposes, and this should not constitute any kind of financial or investment advice in anything. I mostly try to synthesize public information here, but I might have made mistakes. And finally, this presentation had to be converted to PowerPoint, so I apologize in advance if there's any visual interference on here. So just very quickly for context, CoinFund is a 30-person crypto-focused investment firm. We're based in New York. We have seed, venture, and liquid strategies today. It was founded by me in Brooklyn on July 1st, 2015. Just on the side here, as we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and Haseeb mentioned how generalist VCs have been coming in at the tops, we were reflecting at CoinFund that in that 10-year period, there were 2 years of bull market, the ICO bubble of 2017, and the period from mid-2020 to mid-21, and the rest of the 8 years have been bear market. So as you're choosing managers, you should choose ones who have been able to navigate that kind of stringent market regime. At CoinFund, we're generalist and thesis-driven and try to cover most of the space, but my work personally, I have a background in mathematics, computer science, and finance, has focused on early stage at CoinFund, and in particular on infrastructure and deep tech innovation, of which I'll talk about today in the form of decentralized AI. The intersection of blockchains and AI is a topic that has been talked about for many, many years, probably as long as CoinFund has existed and as long as people were looking at the blockchain space. But for the first little while, it's mostly theory, not very many customers, blog posts and such. And I would argue that WorldCoin, so Sam Altman's project from 2020, is really like the first flagpole on that journey into actually taking the intersection of AI and Web3 to market. Just to say a few words about WorldCoin, a project I'm very excited about. I think Sam Altman had incredible foresight here because this was a project that was envisioned in 2018, 2019, and he was really thinking about a world. This is before ChatGPT, before large-scale GPT models, but he was already seeing that AI was going to get so good, we're going to have a lot of trouble disambiguating humans and robots online, on Zoom, on video, etc. And he decided that we need a way of disambiguating those things through a proof of humanity based on biometrics, and moreover, that this needs a cryptographic primitive, and in particular a blockchain, at the core of this project to make it a global public good. And one view of world, that's probably underappreciated today is it's actually one of the best Web3 consumer go-to-markets ever because of how many people it's aggregating all over the world. But that's just the beginning of our journey in Web3 and AI. And in 2022, we meet Jensen, who's really the first company that I ever sort of heard the idea from that we could be training models on decentralized networks. CoinFund's thesis was published in September of 22. This is 6 months before ChatGPT even came out in March of 23. And then by the time we get to mid-2024, decentralized AI is 30 to 60% of crypto mind share, according to Cato and things like that. So what is decentralized AI to me? Well, I'm a technologist. I think of everything in terms of tech stacks. And there's a certain stack which produces AI products today. It starts with core academic research by AI PhDs. It has to aggregate large-scale compute in order to train these models. So there's a big training process there. Then we have to get the output of the models through inference, and then we have to turn them into products. And so the question that I wanted to answer is, can we put this stack on decentralized networks? The reasons for doing that I'll talk about a little bit later, but this is like a key point of everything we've seen over the last 10 years. It's like, can we make like finance, public goods on decentralized networks? Can we make digital collectibles public goods and so on? And in this case, the question is, what can we do with the stack? And in particular, what is the hardest technical problem that we have to solve in order to do that? Well, research and productization, it's a matter of course. Compute has a very long history in Web3. We've had, LivePeer had a GPU network in 2018 doing video transcoding. In 2016, we had decentralized storage networks. And inference is really, technologically speaking, kind of a subset of training that's highly optimized. And so what this question comes down to is, can we take decentralized training and do it in a decentralized way? And I'm going to talk about why decentralized training can't be done and shouldn't be done and won't be done, which was the story of a lot of people in San Francisco, the top AI experts, who had very, very good research and very, very good arguments about why this is true. Training of these models requires huge data throughput. I mean, you've heard how we're taking the entire internet and running it through the training process in order to train a big model. Well, that whole world of data has to go between multiple nodes many, many times. So we're talking about multiples of the entire internet. We're talking about professional data centers that have 100 gigabyte per second links, and actually the state of the art is probably like 10 times that right now. I heard 800 gigabytes per second at OpenAI. You need high-end GPUs to hold these enormous models in memory, and those GPUs are impossible to get because they're all owned by big tech. This also excludes commodity hardware. Moreover, the open internet, which is what most decentralized networks are built on, is an order of magnitude slower than this and cannot really support this kind of throughput. And finally, decentralized networks are adversarial. They have hackers trying to mess everything up all the time. So when you brought this state of affairs to a traditional AI person who's really, really interested in building the best model and focusing on that, and he said, hey, let's solve all these problems, they said it's not going to work. Alexander Long, who's the founder of Pluralis, writing in his blog post for the announcement of his seed raise, which is Union Square Ventures and CoinFund co-leading, talks about how he went to his boss at Amazon, how he went to his university advisor, and how he even went to someone at a big frontier lab with this idea for decentralized training. And all of them said, this isn't going to work. It's going to break training physics. And he writes in his post, in hindsight, my decision to pursue a decentralized training startup was irrational. And now I'm going to talk about why it can and actually does work. Because it turns out that we have very smart people among us. We have AI PhDs, and when people sit down to solve really hard problems, they can actually make progress. And what has happened over the last 2 years, in particular, is that we have developed many algorithms that dramatically make this process of training more efficient. They lower the number of times that these nodes have to communicate amongst themselves to do these training processes, and they also very effectively compress the data, the amount of data that needs to be passed. From, in Pluralis's algorithm, it's a 100x improvement. So now instead of having to train on 100 gigabyte per second internet fabric, you can train on 100 megabyte per second internet fabric. And it starts to work. Moreover, big tech companies are already breaking down models in terms of sharding the data, in terms of breaking up the models themselves. And what that does is it allows you to start to use more commodity GPUs with smaller memory footprints. And what's super interesting is that, yes, while big tech owns most of the high-end GPU hardware today, high-end GPU hardware is only 2% of the hardware in the world. And if you're able to use the long tail of commodity hardware, you can actually stack up vastly more compute than they can buy today, which is very interesting. And we know that decentralized networks can actually create very, very large amounts of compute and aggregate it using token incentives because, for example, Bitcoin is the largest supercomputer by hash rate. These GPU swarms that these networks are proposing to train models are also highly resistant. Nodes can come in and out at any time. And it's actually more resistant than some of the processes that are happening like inside the proprietary companies today. And finally, these models can live in the network. I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But there's no central authority necessarily who owns that model. And that's actually a huge advantage. So I want to talk very quickly about what are CoinFund's portfolio companies achieving in this space. Well, Prime Intellect, within the last year and a half, has launched 2 fairly large models, pre-trained and post-trained, as sort of an answer to the problem that people have proposed that this is impossible. They're like, well, it's possible. Here it is. They also have an ICML main track paper. By the way, in June, ICML is one of the top 3 ML conferences in the world, had 2 main track papers on decentralized training, both portfolio companies of ours. Jensen, our investment from 2022, is the first network where reinforcement learning can be done in a swarm. And in fact, the contributions of the swarm are tracked by a blockchain, and that blockchain is doing about 1/3 of the number of transactions every day that as Ethereum mainnet in testnet. Pluralis, which I would argue is doing some of the most in-depth work in breaking up models, so model parallelism, has just literally like 5 days ago completed its first training run, which I'll talk about shortly, where a large high parameter model was trained by heterogeneous commodity GPUs. And they got 3 papers accepted to NeurIPS, the largest ML conference in the world. I mean, Google has an acceptance rate of 25% for their papers. These guys submitted 5 and got 3, so that's 60%. And our company Bagel has also been doing some very interesting research on privacy preservation during training and fine-tuning, as well as some of the first decentralized diffusion model training. Now I'll talk about Pluralis's run I just mentioned. So 7.5 billion parameter models, trained in 25 days. 1,642 nodes participated in this run, and from all over the world. Apologies for the typo there. And then first stable model parallel run ever in the world. So I'll show you some visuals from that. These are where all the nodes were coming from, most of the continents. This is the training loss curve of the model, which is showing you that over time, this process converged into a model that lowered its loss and became, reasonably intelligent within the parameters that you would want to see. So it worked, whereas previous efforts at model parallelism did not. This is, from the top 35 participants in this training run, kind of their ownership, quote unquote. This is conceptual, but the idea is that, they'll co-own this model in proportion to the computational power that they contributed to the training process. And this, to me, is really the money shot. This is, showing you that over the course of this training, not only did nodes come in and out of this network, but every single one of those colored dots is a different kind of GPU hardware. It starts with H100s, H200s, A100s, high-end hardware, just like OpenAI has. And it goes all the way down to RTX, 2090s, 4090s, basically gaming GPUs. And all of those GPUs participated in this process. Just never been done before. So why is decentralized training important and big? I'll give you my 3 quick reasons. I think we're going to see a much lower barrier to entry to training. First of all, model production is proliferating. Pre-training is still 60% of compute budgets in big companies. And everybody wants to pre-train a model if they can. They want to do a frontier model in video and audio. customized to your language, customized to your country, et cetera. So this activity is becoming more and more and more widespread. But now, using a swarm, customers can instrument very effective processes which are lower cost to get to these models. Moreover, if you're a scientist and you have a crazy idea, you no longer have to work at Google to be able to test it in production. That's so important for AI processes. Secondly, we know that open source is a really important aspect of this space. Everyone in AI knows that when you work at a proprietary company, and this slows down research because they don't want to share. But a lot of the innovation in AI, especially over the last 3-4 years, has come from open source. And so these kinds of networks are going to enable better open source, not just openness of weights, where Mark Zuckerberg gives you the weights but doesn't tell you how he got them, but openness of setup, the data, the recipe for how to make the model. So someone can come in and fork the model just like they're forking a GitHub repository. This is going to create incredible openness, and it's going to really make it easy for people to participate in AI. And so innovation will move much faster. And finally, because these models will be co-owned by the participants who train them, you're going to have a much greater degree of aligned incentives and mutual ownership. And finally, and this is the real key here, open source AI models have not been valuable. Stability AI tried to do this, but you can take Stable Diffusion and inference it on your laptop, or go ahead and try to make money with Llama 4. But what's interesting about these swarm models is that monetization will occur at the point of inference, and the point of inference has to be the network, because the model lives essentially in the network. There's no one person who owns the weights. So model revenue streams will be tokenized, will be transferable, and kind of the value, in some abstract sense, of the model will correlate with the price of the token. Moreover, there's multiple business models and ownership models that are possible. You can do public runs for fully open things. You could do fully private runs if you agree with your swarm participants to do that. Or you could do something in between. Hey, maybe only token holders are allowed to inference this model for the first year, and then it's open thereafter, or something like that. So all of that is still very unexplored, but possible. And so when we put this all together, why am I excited about decentralized training as our AI thesis? It's because there's going to be a stock market of AI models. When we think about trying to get exposure to AI, to frontier AI, it's really hard to participate in the private round of OpenAI. It's really hard to buy a public stock today. I would argue that over the next 18 months, the principal point of financial exposure to frontier AI will be, for most people, through a crypto token. But there's a lot of noise. Some people say it's agents as deAI, et cetera. What this mechanism offers is the ability for people to go directly to the source of value in the AI technology stack, and that's inferencing the models. I think the impact will be that AI will be more open, more transparent, more safe, and more smart, and in fact, that AI will be an asset class. And so that's why I'm very excited about it. Thank you.